Well, thank you, Dr. Machnouk, for speaking with This is Beirut today. So first, I want to start with the Israeli strike on Beirut's southern suburbs on the 7th of June and the subsequent Iranian strike on Israel. They claim to do this in defense of Lebanon. How do you interpret this? Did Iran truly fire these missiles into Lebanon for Lebanese national interests or for their own?
This is a classic case of Iranian regime gaslighting. I think it's absolute nonsense, for the lack of a better word. For 3 years, Lebanon has undergone various forms of Israeli bombardment, both in the south and in Lahi and other places. Not once did the Iranians feel concerned to intervene on behalf of the Lebanese people. The one time where the Iranian regime felt concerned to intervene was when the Lebanese government charted its own independent path in negotiations in Washington, saying we will not be subservient to a process of negotiations that is led by the Iranian regimes. So those rockets were not in fact aimed at Israel. Those rockets were aimed at the negotiations conducted by the Lebanese delegation in Washington, D.C.
So you spoke a bit about the direct negotiations taking place in Washington. How do you interpret the joint US-Israel-Lebanon statement from both a political and security angle, particularly from a Lebanese perspective?
I thought these were excellent talks. I thought that it put us on the path to sovereign decision-making and independent decision-making. So this is the first time that the Lebanese government clearly stated that it was negotiating on behalf of Lebanon and will not be part of any proxy negotiations. The negotiations and the statement put out by the State Department signaled three very important things. Number one, that there is no hostile intent between the Lebanese government and the government of Israel, which is the truth, has always been the truth, remains the truth, that the problem is Hezbollah and Iran's wars launched from Lebanese territory on Israel. The second, laid out by the Americans, but approved by the Lebanese government, is that Hezbollah is the enemy not only of Israel, but also of the Lebanese people. And the third point was to say clear and loud that the goal of negotiations is a peace agreement.
And following these advancements that you're describing in these direct talks between Lebanon and Israel, what do you believe President Joseph Aoun and Prime Minister Nawaf Salam should do in order to advance these talks, these issues of disarmament and advancing sovereignty?
So first, it's important to point out that what President Joseph Aoun and Prime Minister Nawaf Salam are doing right now is a perfectly democratic representation of the expressed will of the Lebanese people towards peace with Israel. This has been proven in poll after poll. The latest poll by Information International, a company not only reputable for its professionalism, but known for its political closeness to the anti-peace camp, and therefore quite credible at what it's saying, showed that more than 50% of the Lebanese want peace with Israel. More than 50% of the Lebanese want direct negotiation with Israel. And very importantly, and important to notice as well, 52% of Sunni Muslims in Lebanon, in what constitutes a historic breakthrough, have expressed the desire to see peace between Lebanon and Israel. So this is not two enlightened leaders acting despite the will of their people. These are leaders that are acting on the expressed will of the Lebanese people to move forward with a peace project. Now, what they're both doing is excellent, it's courageous, and it's historic. How it can be improved, I would say two things. The first thing is we need to bury the idea that the guiding principle for peace between Lebanon and Israel is the Arab Peace Initiative of 2002. This initiative is 24 years old. Times have changed, the Middle East has changed. Many of the states that have agreed to this peace initiative in 2002 have already gotten involved in peace deals with Israel, including the Abrahamic Accords, the UAE, and others. Lebanon's peace with Israel should depend solely and entirely on Lebanon's national and sovereignty interests. Lebanon's peace with Israel cannot be conditional on any other country's resolution of its issues with Israel, whether it's the Palestinians or someone else. I'm not against seeking Arab support for Lebanon's drive to peace with Israel. I think this is in our national interest, and I think this is what the President and Prime Minister want to be doing. What I oppose vehemently is a return back to 1969, which is saying we cannot resolve this issue unless the Palestinians resolve this issue. I hope they do resolve this issue, but that doesn't mean that we are obliged to condition our peace and prosperity on someone else's decision to pursue a peace track. That's on the political side. On the practical side, diplomacy cannot be a substitute for sovereignty. There is no cutting corners here. There is no shortcut to making a peace deal. The Lebanese government needs to prove that it is able to disarm Hezbollah, and it doesn't mean that it needs to disarm all of Hezbollah at once in the entirety of Lebanese territory. But it does mean that it needs to show itself, the Lebanese people and the international community, that it will put its money where its mouth is and move forward with at least a pilot project, as the agreement suggests, but not a pilot project in the south of Litani, but a pilot project in the north of Litani. Because what a pilot project in the north of Litani does is that it breaks the taboo imposed by Hezbollah that says north of Litani our weapons are not up for discussion. So I would say what the Lebanese government needs to do is at least in one instance show truly that there is no taboos, that there are no red lines in front of the Lebanese Armed Forces, and that they can step up and disarm Hezbollah where it needs to do.
So in your opinion, is disarmament in Lebanon a matter of will or capacity, or both? Specifically, how do you assess the Lebanese army's leadership on this issue in disarming not only Hezbollah's south of the Litani, but also north as well?
We have 83,000 soldiers in our Lebanese armed forces. They're well-trained, they have national affiliation, they're professional soldiers, and they will fight for the sovereignty of their country. What we saw in the south of Litani during the period in between the two wars is not a signal of a lack of capacity, it's a signal of a lack of will. The LAF was not prevented from entering homes because it didn't have the tools or the ammunitions or the weapons to enter its homes. The question here becomes, as it is the case for any army in the world, did the Lebanese army and the Lebanese state go to the international community and say, this is exactly our plan, these are exactly our needs. If you provide us with those needs, we will execute this plan. And the answer that everyone is aware of is no. I can guarantee, and so can many others, that in case the Lebanese army and the Lebanese government has a plan for disarmament, and they have clearly expressed their needs, that the United States and the international community will step up to satisfy those needs. When you see some of the statements and some of the behaviors of the Army Command, you feel like it belongs to a different era. I've read their communique in March. I've read their communique on the so-called Resistance and Liberation Day in May. This is not in any way, shape, or form an indictment of the Army. It's spirit of patriotism, its willingness to fight for the country. This is just a clear out statement that if now we agree that the mission is peace, that the mission is sovereignty, that the mission is disarmament, the current Army leadership is not fit for this mission because it was brought in for a completely different mission.
Do you believe a peace agreement between Lebanon and Israel is realistic at this stage? And adding on to that, what are the main obstacles to a long-lasting agreement? And what could a long-lasting agreement bring to Lebanon? What benefits would it bring to the country?
For the first time, Claudia, and this is quite an exception, for the first time you have a population that wants peace. And I think this is unprecedented in the Middle East. When Egypt wanted peace, I don't think anyone asked the opinion of the Egyptian people. When Jordan signed peace, the Jordanian people were not polled. In these cases, we have leaders that made the decision that this was the right path for their country's future. In Lebanon, you have something completely new, which is a population that has expressed, despite this still being a very dangerous taboo to thread on, despite the risks that come with saying you want peace with Israel, it still expressed, more than half of it expressed a willingness to make peace with Israel. And this is quite exceptional in the history of this region, in the history of peace. Now, the only obstacle to peace between Lebanon and Israel is Iran. So, a Lebanon that is free of Hezbollah, that is at peace with Israel, has unbelievable economic potential. And I think that economic potential will be expressed swiftly. I think a Lebanon that is part of an integrated regional infrastructure that is political and economic, with all the pipelines being built, with all the railways being built, with all the tourist projects being built, all the way from India to Europe, passing by Lebanon. We could economically recover and even thrive, I would say, in less than 5 years, because we're a small economy that has enormous human capital potential. We have no structural issues. All we need is sovereignty, stability, peace, and regional integration. And we can move towards a GDP that's 2 or 3 times what it was at the time of the financial collapse in 2019.